Okay, so today we're talking about the compatibility of Scorpio. So Scorpio as a sign, I think the most distinguishable trait is its emotional intensity. Scorpio is emotionally intense. Scorpio, when Scorpio is interested in someone, they can become obsessive. They feel so much passion, so much desire, so much attraction. Um, so because they feel so emotionally intense and, really they're actually very emotionally vulnerable because of their strong emotion, they're really looking for someone that they can invest in, someone who's going to be loyal, someone who's going to be true, all that good stuff, someone who's going to be reliable. So in that regard, Scorpio can often have great compatibility with earth signs. Taurus, Capricorn, Virgo, any of these signs are going to be reliable, practical, down to earth. They're going to be grounding. They're going to be signs that Scorpio can really trust. On the other hand, though, Scorpio can handle, intensity again. Scorpio, thrives on intensities to some extent. So, to a lesser degree, or from a different angle, we can also view Scorpio as desiring some level of complexity as well. Scorpio itself is complex. They may look for others that are complex as well. So maybe Virgo or another Scorpio or something. Scorpio is a water sign. Again, they're very emotional, so they can sometimes match up with other water signs that are also emotional and will be, understanding and receptive to that level of emotion, like, Scorpio, Cancer, or Pisces. But I don't want to get too deep into the compatibility. We're going to go sign by sign and talk about how Scorpio matches up with each of the signs from Aries to Pisces. And I am testing a new microphone, as you can see, so really hope this doesn't have any issues. I hate new technology, but I'm also, intrigued. Hopefully this will be good. I know a lot of my videos run on the quiet side. So, okay, and before we get into the sign by sign compatibility, let's get this one thing out of the way. When we talk about compatibility, no one's going to match up completely to the essence of Scorpio. So when we talk about, the sign of Scorpio here, you may see this in people, and that's what placements are for. You may see what I'm talking about with someone's sun or moon position, maybe their Venus, Mars, ascendant, Mercury, etc. But what I'm getting at is, we have many placements. Unless someone has every single one of their placements in Scorpio, which, is actually impossible. That can't happen. But you're going to have to look at multiple aspects, multiple positions to truly understand someone's compatibility, what they need in a relationship, things like that. And since you're here, you're interested in compatibility, I would really recommend you look at the descendant, look at your descendant, look at the descendant of whoever you're thinking of or analyzing. The descendant is always exactly opposite the ascendant. So if you have ascendant in Scorpio, the descendant is going to be in Taurus. That has a lot to do with your attraction and what you need in a partnership. Oftentimes, we literally attract to us, those who have strong energy of our descendant sign. Okay, so just want to get that out of the way. Okay, but with all that being said, let's jump in, let's jump into the sign by sign compatibility. So, starting out with Aries, Aries is cardinal fire. Aries, both Aries and Scorpio are ruled by Mars. So what they have in common is their competitiveness. They're both kind of edgy. They're both ambitious. They both thrive in new situations. They can both be very sexual and very intense and very like lustful. They can both be very cool, sexy. These are all attributes of Mars, basically. This is what happens when you have strong Mars energy. So, at least on paper, it may seem that these signs have a lot in common, but in practice, they actually have very little in common. These signs form a quincunx aspect, a 150-degree aspect. Or the way I would look at it is, Aries is almost exactly opposite from Scorpio, but one sign different. Taurus would be exactly opposite. Aries is next to Taurus. So when you have this quincunx aspect, you actually have about as little in common as possible. Yes, these signs are both ruled by Mars, Aries, and Scorpio. But other than that, what do they have in common? These signs are at completely different parts of the cycle, different times of the year. Scorpio, like I said, really wants commitment. They want that some kind of security. They want to know that they can count on whoever they are dealing with. And Aries is wanting adventure. They're wanting, spontaneity and impulsivity. They don't need nearly as much security as Scorpio. So Aries being so impulsive and being so spontaneous, being so rowdy, that's going to be threatening to Scorpio. And, again, Scorpio feels so deeply, they can't afford to be involved with someone who is so unpredictable and so sporadic. Okay. What else? I could definitely see intense attraction here for sure. We already kind of talked about that a little bit, but yeah, again, when it comes to investing in a long-term partnership, Aries will feel confined by Scorpio's, needs basically, and Scorpio's going to feel out of control with Aries. I think, although that's kind of simplistic, I think that really sums up a lot of the dynamic here. So I'm just going to leave it at that, really. Next is Scorpio and Taurus. So this is way different. Taurus is 180 degrees across. It's exactly across the zodiac from Scorpio. These signs are in opposition. So you can have some opposites attract here. Taurus is fixed earth, Scorpio is fixed water. Because both of these signs are fixed, they're both going to be a bit stubborn, a bit headstrong, definitely both very strong willed energies. So they're not going to budge, they're not going to compromise. And so they can butt heads, they can disagree. However, they will both see this in themselves and each other. In other words, they will both see, yes, I may disagree with you, but you stick to your guns, you stick to your point, and so do I, and so therefore I respect you. That's sort of the dynamic between Scorpio and Taurus, or between any two fixed signs, really. So I actually really like this. This can actually drive the attraction even further. You don't necessarily have to get along, or you don't necessarily have to agree with the person you're attracted to all the time for the attraction to work. I think it actually works better if there's a little bit of difference there, if there's a little bit of edginess or grittiness. So you definitely have that with Scorpio and Taurus. However, again, Scorpio needs someone they can rely on, someone they can count on. What better sign than Taurus? Taurus is fixed earth. They are maybe the most dependable sign, the most consistent, the most reliable. They're a little bit predictable. And, this may not be a bad thing. Scorpio can enjoy this. Taurus is also very sensual. So they're going to be, like Scorpio. I think most people with a strong Scorpio energy, they like that closeness. They like, the touching, touchy feely stuff. They may come across, edgy or hard, but really they are kind of soft on the inside, being the Scorpion. So that's gonna work really well with Taurus. Taurus, is very sensual as well, enjoys all that, touchy good stuff. Both are very sensual. So really, this may be the best match out of all of them. We'll see. I'm gonna kind of analyze as I go, and we'll see, if I like any other ones better. But Taurus definitely may be the best sign for Scorpio. Um, again, they're reliable. Scorpio can count on them. Scorpio, this and both being fixed signs, both are going to really commit to this dynamic. Both will hold on to this, and it'll be hard to let go of this dynamic, generally speaking, for both of them, for sure. One last thing about that too, Taurus can desire Scorpio's intensity. Taurus is not really intense, and so Scorpio being so intense and Taurus kind of lacking that intensity can actually be attractive to both of them. They may enjoy that difference in one another. Next is Gemini. So this is totally different again. Again, we have a quincunx aspect, kind of like with Aries. The difference here, though, is that Gemini and Scorpio don't have a shared ruler. They're not both ruled by the same planet. So I would say Scorpio and Gemini probably have less in common, or let me rephrase that. Gemini has less in common with Scorpio than any other sign. So when you have such vast differences, there can be some interest there. Both can be interested in each other. Oh, what is this? This is something new. This person's good at things that I may not be good at, and vice versa. So that can be interesting. That can be attractive. But especially when it comes to close, long-term relationships, having that level of differences between you is going to be so difficult when it comes to understanding each other, understanding understanding each other's needs, and there can be a lot of miscommunication, misunderstanding that can result from this. What else? Scorpio, I'm going to keep coming back to Scorpio's need for, they really want strong intimacy. They want to count on someone. Gemini is about as unpredictable, and unreliable, and no disrespect toward Gemini. But Gemini is not the most reliable sign at all. They're not like Taurus. Gemini is very curious, very detached, and this allows them to kind of just try, they're very experimental. They want to try this, they want to try that. They're very spontaneous. So you really, they're very unpredictable. You can't, even Gemini doesn't know what they're going to do next week or even in the next hour. You know what I mean? They're constantly kind of just winging it and adapting and going. So this again can be very threatening to Scorpio. If Scorpio is becoming involved in someone who has strong Gemini energy, they're gonna feel completely out of control. How, if you feel so deeply and so strongly, how can you possibly have a strong bond with someone who is Gemini? There's gonna have to be some other variable for this to work because again, there's gonna be the misunderstandings, miscommunications. They are just so different in nature. Gemini is one of the most detached signs as well. They just don't feel nearly as deeply as Scorpio. Gemini definitely has emotions, but they process everything much more rationally. Scorpio can be analytical, so there could be some great like analytical conversations here. But when it comes to it, Scorpio really experiences everything emotionally. They can be analytical. They can definitely keep up with Gemini's, analysis and thinking. But at the end of the day, Scorpio, their whole experience is fundamentally emotional, where Gemini is just not. So again, that's gonna be a huge difference where both may misunderstand that in each other. Both can, think that the other one is not understanding, not empathetic. Both there could be like blaming, mutual blaming. Um, so really, I think for this to work, there would have to be, both would have to be very open and understanding of each other, and or there may have to be some other, you know, something else going on here, like a different element in both of their chart, different signs, things like that. Next is Scorpio and Cancer. So Cancer is a water sign. This means that Cancer and Scorpio form a trine aspect. This means that they have a lot in common and that the nature of the relationship between them is going to be very easy. It's going to be very natural. When you're dealing with someone else who has a lot in common to you, you just don't have to try as hard. You can understand each other much more readily and you can fall back on each other, especially in times where you're feeling weak or what have you. You can fall back on that friendship and, it's going to be something that's very strong without requiring much work. The only downside of this is that it can be a bit on the boring side. It can lack passion to some extent. This is really going to depend on what's going on in the rest of each of these people's charts. But on the other hand, though, both of these signs are water, so they're both very emotional. Both will understand, and respect the level of emotion that the other has, and they'll both be very receptive to that emotion. So, this is generally a really good match for sure, especially for a friendship. And, friendship could be part of something more. There could be also something romantic going on there. I could also see, if you when we're younger, we tend to seek relationships with people who are more similar to us. So I could definitely see, for younger people, Cancer and Scorpio pairings may be more attractive as well. But when we are older, or when we're wanting to branch out, when we're wanting to find someone who is more complementary to our nature rather than just similar, then we may want someone a little bit more different. That's the only kind of main criticism I have of this pairing. Not really criticism, but like a potential downside, I guess you could say. But other than that, both are going to enjoy the same things, both have similar needs. This is a really easy connection. Even in the symbology of Cancer and Scorpio, both have an exoskeleton, both have that hard exterior, so they can both come across hard or edgy, but then they have that soft interior. So they're both softies, but they both protect themselves because they're both emotionally vulnerable. So they have a lot in common. This is a really easy connection, easy dynamic. Okay, next is Leo. So again, very different connection here. Leo is fixed fire. Leo forms a square aspect, a 90-degree aspect with Scorpio. So they're going to butt heads. They're going to clash. This clash will not always necessarily be bad. It can be intense. It can be very passionate. Both of these signs are very passionate. They're both a bit possessive. They both can get a bit jealous. So there could be a lot of drama that stirs up when these signs become involved in each other. Both are very committed, very loyal, so they can definitely attach to each other and they won't want to let go. And again, there's that passion driving things as well. But the nature of this dynamic is generally going to be very up and down, very up and down. On it's almost like on paper there are a lot of things, there are some similarities between these signs, being so passionate, being so loyal. What else? Both are fixed, so they're both a bit stubborn. They're very strong-willed. They're not going to change themselves for anybody. So again, I think there can be a lot of attraction here. Things can be very passionate. The downside comes where Leo is more of a free spirit. They want to be the center of attention. They want to be very active, and this is going to be very threatening to Scorpio. This can make Scorpio feel out of control. This can set off their jealousy and other emotions, and so depending on the person, Scorpio may become either controlling or they may, go within themselves. There could be a lot of, difficult processes that kind of happen from that. And Leo may or may not be aware of this, may not be intending for this. They're just being themselves. They're being, very, I don't know, out in the open, very active, very visible. But again, this is threatening to Scorpio. This is not, so basically, that's where you get a lot of the setup for this drama, for this instability. But at the same time, they're still fixed. They're both fixated on each other. They're both committed to some extent. So although it's very up and down, very unstable, neither one will want to let go. So I always give caution for people who are going to engage in a dominant Leo with dominant Scorpio relationship. It could work, but again, this is one of those combinations where these signs are very different. I think they can seem very similar on the surface. When meeting each other, they can seem similar. I've often mistyped Scorpios for being Leos. They can come across very, exuberant and very warm, like Leo. So they can seem similar, but when it comes to a long-term relationship, though, they have very different needs. Scorpio is much more private, much more intimate, much more emotional. Leo's, kind of out there. They're the life of the party. They don't want to be tied down. They want to be free. So again, I just give a word of caution. Both of these people will need to be aware of their differences, and they'll both need to be mutually understanding, and they'll need to compromise and cooperate for this to work. So this overall, it's kind of a difficult connection for sure. Next is Scorpio and Virgo. So this is one of those connections that is notorious, or I don't know if notorious is the right word. It's known for being a really great match. I think it may be a bit overrated, but I do see the potential for a really great match here. Virgo is complex. I think Virgo is kind of a sweet spot for Scorpio because on the one hand, they are reliable, they're consistent, they're even a bit predictable. Virgo loves routine and they're very grounding. They love making sense of things. They want everything to make sense. So that can be very comforting for Scorpio. Scorpio can really rely on Virgo. They can, feel at ease. They can invest in Virgo. But on the other hand, Virgo is very complex as well. So Virgo will keep Scorpio interested too. This is, I think, beneficial for Virgo. Virgo wants to be understood, and Scorpio has this X-ray vision. They see into people. They see right through you. They understand you. And I think for many people, this can make many people feel uncomfortable. Others, feel exposed. They don't want that level of understanding from someone they may not know very well. But for Virgo, this is very comforting. Virgo struggles with feeling understood. They want to be understood. So for someone to just come along and see right through them, this could actually be really comforting for them. So really for both parties, Virgo and Scorpio, they can both, find a lot of benefit from each other. Virgo is going to like Scorpio's depth and complexity, their emotion. Water and earth go hand in hand. Water nurtures the earth, so Scorpio can be very nurturing for Virgo. They can really be nurturing for each other. So this is really great connection. Yeah, I think Virgo rivals Taurus, for being maybe the best match for Scorpio, just in sort of a different way, I would say. Um, The only downside I could see here is maybe Virgo being too detached. Virgo can be somewhat detached at times, very, analytical. And again, Scorpio can be analytical too. They can have really great conversations. They're both, very intellectual signs, intelligent signs. But Virgo's detachedness, especially depending on the combination, like if they have some air in their chart, for example, if Virgo is too detached, that can be threatening to Scorpio. That can make Scorpio feel out of control. What else? Virgos also can change a lot. Virgo is a mutable sign. Yes, they come across very like structured. They are very structured and disciplined. They want consistency. But on the other hand, Virgo can be open to change. They are more adaptable than people realize. So that can also be threatening to Scorpio because, Scorpio wants that consistency. So it depends on the Virgo. Virgo being immutable energy, it's going to change a lot depending on what you mix with it, if that makes sense. In other words, what is going on in the rest of the chart. So I think that's going to be a big factor here with Scorpio. But generally speaking, this is a really great match. I could see why it's hyped up. I could see why it, is seen as it's known to be a good match for sure. Next is Scorpio and Libra. So Libra is right next to Scorpio. This is a semi-sextile aspect. The way I describe semi-sextile aspects is they're like sibling, energies. Libra and Scorpio, they are next to each other in the zodiac, but when you have signs that are right next to each other, they actually have very little in common. So this is, to me, it's a lot like siblings, where Libra and Scorpio, they're both conceived, they're both born in the same environment, the same context. They're both fall or autumn signs in the northern hemisphere. Um, on an abstract level, they both deal with intimacy, relationships, partnerships. They both deal with, how do you work with other people? Those are the themes they explore. So, like siblings, they both, come from the same general environment, the same era, I guess. But when you actually look at them, though, they have completely different personalities. They have completely different energies. And even when it comes to the compatibility can be very hit and miss. It can be very hot and cold. I think very similar to mini siblings dynamics. Okay, so how does this actually look? The main thing I think of here is Scorpio is, like we said, Scorpio, the probably main distinguishing trait of Scorpio is their emotional intensity. They are one of the most emotional signs, maybe even the most emotional sign. And Libra, I would go as far as to say that Libra is the least emotional sign. It's definitely one of the least emotional signs. So when it comes to long-term compatibility, romantic compatibility, to me, this is a huge challenge. It will be very difficult for both to understand one another when there's that dramatic difference when it comes to the level of emotion that they're each experiencing. They're going to experience that relationship in a totally different way. Libra can come across very engaging. They can come across very sentimental, very sensitive. But Libra is fundamentally detached. Libra, has that ability to just kind of to be detached and to try this or to try that. They're not they're not super. They can be committed for sure, but they're not. I don't know. I wouldn't say they're the most committed sign in the zodiac because of that detachedness. Again, they're more interested in being flirty. That flirtatiousness can be a bit threatening to Scorpio as well. Scorpio wants someone that's really going to be more generally monogamous. I would say, not that Libra is not capable of monogamy, but again, they just like being kind of flirty. They often don't even mean to be flirty, so that that could potentially ruffle Scorpio's feathers for sure. What else? Both are socially very intelligent. Both, I think there could be a lot of really great like conversations or like flirtation between these two. But on the other hand, again, they are so different in their nature. You know, Libra is looking for someone who is very active, who is, takes the lead, who, they're generally looking for someone very fiery. And Scorpio can be that. They can be fiery. They're definitely very headstrong. So that could be attractive to Libra. But I don't think Libra is looking for someone so, Scorpio could be a little bit serious. And Libra doesn't really take things very seriously. They want someone who is a little bit more impulsive, more active. And Scorpio can, Scorpio can be impulsive and active, but a lot of the time, again, they're looking for that security, commitment. I think that could be a bit dull. That could be a bit, I'm picturing like that could be a bit claustrophobic for Libra, and then vice versa. Libra's wanting someone, you know, Libra being so detached and kind of flighty, that could be threatening or just annoying to Scorpio when it comes to compatibility. So overall, I think this would be a really difficult dynamic for sure. Okay, next is Scorpio with itself. Scorpio with another person who has a lot of Scorpio energy or Scorpio placements. So I've actually seen this in a lot of compatibility, readings that I do. I think this can often work really well because Scorpio, especially when you're talking about like Moon in Scorpio, for example, where it's in fall, it's debilitated. This can work really well because when you have Sun or Moon or other energies in Scorpio, we can often be misunderstood, be a bit of a lone wolf or a black sheep or what have you. And again, there's that emotional intensity, there's that depth there. So when you're dealing with someone else who's Scorpio who also has all of that, there's going to be this, you're going to be able to trust them and count on them because you have so much in common. So that can be really refreshing. You can finally feel understood, which a lot of Scorpio people don't feel understood oftentimes. So that can be very attractive. That can be really great. um, Also, just with that emotional intensity and depth, finding someone else who feels that way too, you can have that safety. I can experience this strong emotion with this person because they get it, they feel that too, and so therefore I can, we can build on this, we can trust it. There's that loyalty there, there's that commitment. So Scorpio, I think that works really well. Yeah, the only downside I could see here is that again, when you have very similar energies, you're not going to be learning a lot. You're not going to be evolving necessarily, unless, I think oftentimes these types of relationships come when we are learning about ourselves. So, again, like early in life, for example, or when we just want some kind of simplicity, when we just want an easy relationship. We want, or when we want to like connect with ourselves more, just go back to the basics, then this type of relationship may pop up because again, there's not going to be a lot of like mutually complementary dynamics here. You're not going to have unique strengths that the other one doesn't. And so, the main allure here is just the easiness of it. You can fall back on this person. You don't have to try super hard to understand them because they are similar to yourself. So that's, depending on the situation, this could be exactly what you need, but it may not be enough though. I think this could be part of a really great dynamic, but Scorpio may want someone who is a little bit more different from themselves too. Someone who has, I don't know, something else going on. I think that's what drives attraction, is that the differences. I don't know. Next is Scorpio and Sagittarius. So depending on how you look at it, these have very little in common, or in some ways they could have a lot in common too, which may sound weird, but um, again, these are semi-sextile, so yes, they are side by side, but they have very little in common. Both of these signs are very passionate, and Sagittarius, on the one hand, it is mutable, so it is known to be less than monogamous. But ideally, Sagittarius is looking for the best. They're looking for that one special person. Sagittarius is very romantic. Scorpio can be as well, although they are a bit cynical too. So this could work in that regard. Both are wanting to really commit, especially when Sagittarius is later in life. They're really wanting that one, special person, that one special dynamic. However, Sagittarius can also be very adventurous, very active. It's a lot like Aries or Leo. I would say in this context, it's more like Aries because Sagittarius is very, very bold, very impulsive. They want to, let's just go out and try something completely new. They're a bit radical. They're a bit experimental. That is going to be threatening to Scorpio. Scorpio can't count on that. They can't rely on that. It's not predictable. It's not consistent. So that, I think that's a huge downside for Scorpio. And then vice versa, Scorpio, maybe a bit confining for Sagittarius. Sagittarius wants so much mobility, they want so much freedom, and Scorpio is looking for a more intimate, more possessive relationship. There's nothing wrong with that. So again, there's that huge disconnect there. They fundamentally need different things when it comes to relationships. I don't know. So could it work? Of course, it could work, but there's going to need to be a lot of mutual understanding, respect, compromise, etc. What else can I say about that? Both. Again, I think I touched on how both are very passionate, so they can be very, very. I just realized my microphone's pointed down. Stupid. I'll fix that later. It's too late now. But both are very passionate. There can be a lot of attraction here for sure. But again, I think Sagittarius is just a little bit too out of control for Scorpio. You're gonna need a very like freedom-loving Scorpio for this dynamic to work, I would think. Next is Capricorn. So now we are back to the sextile aspect, kind of like what we had with Virgo. So this works really well. I think Scorpio and Capricorn have a lot in common. Um, Scorpio's water, Capricorn's earth. So these are more like introverted or inward focused energies. But both Capricorn, both Scorpio and Capricorn are very ambitious, very industrial. I think those are the main. There's huge similarities just there. Both can be very outgoing, I guess. Especially when it comes to their ambitions, they can be leaders. They can be really great leaders. But they're also both very private signs in general. They can have really successful reputations in public lives, but part of their success is how they keep things private, especially when it comes to their emotions and their private life. They keep all that very secretive. Both can be a bit closed off, both can be very independent, and both can struggle with relationships because of how independent they are. They just don't really open up very easily to others. So on the one hand, this could be difficult because they both struggle with relationships. So who's going to be the one that is more emotionally vulnerable, who puts themselves out there? It's hard to say. So that could, I think this relationship would. I was going to say it would develop very slowly, but on the other hand, both having so much in common, they could connect in a very special way and immediately recognize, this is a person I can trust, this is a person I can count on. Both want a lot of consistency. I would say Capricorn is definitely more consistent than, say, Virgo, for example. Capricorn is all about the future, planning, very goal oriented. Scorpio is that way too. Scorpio, is a fixed sign. They want that consistency. Capricorn is cardinal, but they are very consistent, and both can be a bit stubborn, both can be a bit strong-willed. So I think this dynamic works very well for sure. And Capricorn can be grounding. They are reliable, practical, down to earth. Very grounding for Scorpio. So this can put Scorpio at ease when it comes to their strong emotion. So yeah, really this works very well. I think the only downsides would be um, they may have too much in common. So this is almost like Scorpio being with Scorpio, in my opinion. The main difference is Capricorn can be a little bit less emotionally intense. Capricorn, in my opinion, is emotionally intense, though. Maybe not as much as Scorpio, but so basically, my point is they have a lot in common, maybe too much. So there may not be enough differences there to drive the attraction. This may not be interesting. These signs may not be learning from each other or mutually. There may not be that mutually beneficial dynamic that I like to see with relationships. So that's my only critique here. But other than that, these signs have so much in common. They do have some differences, which I think are good for attraction. So overall, really great combination for sure. Should be a generally easy and favorable relationship. Of course, depending on what else is going on with the astrology. Next is Scorpio and Aquarius. So this is a really kind of interesting, kind of weird one. Let's talk about the plus sides first, and then we'll talk about the minus sides. Um, Okay, so Scorpio and Aquarius, this is a square aspect. Many astrologers will tell you, this is a harsh aspect, therefore they aren't compatible. I don't think it's that simple. The square aspect is ruled by Mars, so this could be a very like sexual combination, kind of like with Scorpio and Leo. This is also a square. Scorpio and Aquarius both are fixed signs, both are strong willed. Neither one is going to change themselves for the other. So, again, they may disagree oftentimes, but they will at least understand and respect each other. So, you have that mutual understanding and respect, but then you have enough differences to drive the attraction to bring a little bit of edginess into the mix. So far, really great. There could be a lot of attraction, a lot of passion here. I read somewhere one astrologer described the Aquarius Scorpio square as the angle of sex, because Scorpio is of course the sign of sex. It has everything to do with emotional intimacy and things of that nature. And then Aquarius is known for being kind of weird, kind of out there. They want to try different things. They want to be a bit, rebellious. Both of these signs can be very rebellious. Um, Going on a tangent here, both signs have a lot to do with countercultures, being unique, being different, blazing your own path or what have you. So again, there could be those mutual similarities where, this can build an easy connection in regard to the similarities. However, there's a lot of differences too. The main difference, sorry, the main difference I would see is Aquarius is an air sign. They are detached. So just like with Libra and Gemini, Aquarius is one of the most detached signs. So how is that going to work when you are combining that with Scorpio, which is one of the most emotionally intense signs, one of the most emotional signs? Um, Again, could it work? Of course it could work, but there's going to have to be a lot of mutual respect, understanding, cooperation to bridge that gap in the level of emotion. It's just so dramatically different. That's the main challenge I see here. Aquarius being fixed air, they can be very consistent, dependable, reliable, predictable, loyal. These are all kind of keywords that go with fixed signs, I would say. However, Aquarius is also known for their dramatic, spontaneous changes. So, Aquarius may be one way for a long time. They may have one lifestyle and be very consistent with that lifestyle, maybe for years and years. And then overnight, seemingly out of nowhere, they just, I don't know, move across the country or end a relationship or start a different relationship. They may make some kind of huge change to themselves or to their life, seemingly out of nowhere. So, I think this would be Scorpio's worst nightmare. On the one hand, Aquarius does have that kind of, complexity that Scorpio craves, but on the other hand, Aquarius is very contradictory when it comes to analyzing how stable and consistent they are. They're simultaneously one of the most and least consistent signs. This is the energy of earthquakes. It's stable for a long time, and then just suddenly there's a storm, there's an earthquake, and then everything has changed overnight. So again, how does that work with Scorpio? I wouldn't think so. To some extent, Scorpio can be like that too, though. So I don't know if that hurts, helps, or hinders the dynamic. Long story short, overall, I would say this is a more difficult combination. Yes, they do have a surprising amount in common that they could maybe bond over. I think this would be really great, especially for a friendship. But when it comes to a long-term, romantic uh, connection, there's all they're fundamentally very different. Again, the main difference is the level of emotion. Neither of these signs is very comfortable with expressing emotion either. Scorpio likes to hold back and keep their emotions contained, and Aquarius is very uncomfortable, very kind of awkward when it comes to expressing emotion. So that I think kind of would put a damper on things as well. So overall, this is going to be one of the more difficult combinations. Both will have to. There's going to have to be some work for both of these signs for this connection to work. Okay, lastly with Pisces, uh, you know, this is again a trine aspect. These are both water signs. They have a lot in common. I actually like this maybe even more than Cancer. And of course, when I say I like it, this is coming from my I'm an astrologer. I do readings where I look at synastry readings, for example, where I'm looking at people's charts. So what I like may be different than what someone else likes. I'm looking at things on a thematic level, if that makes sense. But at least coming to this from this point of view, I really enjoy it, maybe more so than you know I do with Cancer and Scorpio, just because I think there's more difference here in a way. Pisces is not an invertebrate. Pisces is symbolized by the fish. They're soft on the inside, soft on the outside. Pisces is very, they just kind of let it all hang out. They're very emotionally vulnerable. They they thrive with that. They don't mind it. I think it's very brave. So combining, mixing that with Scorpio or having Pisces meet Scorpio, I think this works really well because on the one hand, Scorpio is going to be the leader. They, take the initiative. They're very strong-willed. I think more so than Pisces. Pisces is more adaptable, more go with the flow. So in a way, I think Scorpio would be the more dominant one here. They'd be the leader. But when it comes to being emotionally vulnerable, which in many ways drives the relationship, Pisces, I think, would actually be the leader. So in some subtle ways, I think Pisces would actually drive the connection here because again, Pisces is gonna be very open, be very vulnerable. Scorpio is less comfortable with that. They keep things more contained. But as soon as Pisces kind of breaks down that barrier and shows Scorpio that they can trust them, Scorpio is going to reveal their kind of soft interior, and then from there you get this really kind of soft, delicate, touchy feely, kind of sappy connection between Scorpio and Pisces. So that can work really well. What else? Both are very, because they are both water signs, they're both very emotional, very sensitive. They have a lot in common. This is going to be a super easy connection, generally speaking. Both will automatically understand each other. Both will have an easy friendship between each other. What else? Both deal with themes involving like finding what's hidden. Both Scorpio and Pisces have to do with things that are hidden, if that makes sense. So both, people with energies like this will be very attentive to vibes and things that are nuanced in nature. So both are very perceptive, very intuitive. So again, lots in common. This could be really great for a relationship. The only downside I could see here, this is a significant downside though, is what I keep saying over and over again is Scorpio wants someone they can rely on, invest in, someone who's going to be loyal, someone who's going to be dependable. Pisces is fixed water. They are constantly changing. Pisces is probably the least structured sign. And Pisces can be detached as well. They're kind of all over the place, That's what you have to love about Pisces. So again, this could, although Scorpio will have a lot of understanding with Pisces, Scorpio may feel out of control just because Pisces can be so unpredictable. They are all over the place. They may completely change their minds. They not just change their minds, but change, how they feel is constantly changing. It's unpredictable. You could maybe say that about everyone, but especially Pisces. So there is that huge caveat there. I think for this to really work, you'll need some kind of consistency. Like, for example, if Pisces has some like Taurus in their chart or something, that may be a little bit better. A consistent Pisces. Um, but other than that, in a different situation, Scorpio could enjoy that level of complexity that it gets from Pisces as well. So it all just kind of depends on what else is going on in the charts here. But overall, these signs do have a lot in common. It's gonna be an easy connection. There's enough differences here to keep things interesting and for there to be attraction to keep the relationship developing. But there's definitely enough in common that this will be easy as well. So this is one of my favorite combinations for Scorpio as well. So that's my take on Scorpio compatibility. I think just summarizing that, my favorite connections for Scorpio would be Taurus, Virgo, probably Taurus, Virgo, and Pisces, if I'm being honest. And then to a lesser extent, the other water and earth signs. So Taurus, Virgo, Pisces, followed by what's left? Cancer, Scorpio, and Capricorn. Scorpio can work really well though. I think of water and earth signs for Scorpio. I guess that's what I would say. So that's my take on the compatibility of Scorpio. If you liked this compatibility video, I've done most of the other signs. I've done all of them at this point other than Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. So you can check out this playlist. I will show it here. Otherwise, yeah, check out my channel for more astrological ramblings, different kind of deep dives and things like that. Or you can hit me up for a reading. I always include my email and website information in the description. Okay, but thanks for watching and have a great day.